Hello guys, in this video we will explore the post blog which we had in our Bits to Gigs website on how to mock a private member with Mockito. So to provide the context, we had written this blog where a developer might require to mock a private variable in the class uh, to cover any negative test scenario or any other scenario which is required in the writing the tests for that class. So we are going to cover that. In this example, we have used Mockito, and that is based on that. So we'll start with this project here, which is bits to gigs Java. You'll be able to find this code repository on GitHub. I'll post the link in the YouTube video description, so you can download it, try your hands on, make changes, and see the real-time example which you see on the blog post. So first of all, we have this bits to gigs Java project, which I'm going to use, and I'm going to create a new package called service. Okay. And within that, I'm going to create a Java class called sample service IMPL. I'm keeping the names same as the blog post so that you'll be able to relate it better. And within this class, let's say I have a private object mapper named object mapper. And instead of doing new object mapper, what we'll be doing is we'll create another package named config. You can name it anything. I'm just naming for the sake of this demo. And I'll create a new class here, which will be called Spring Service Config. Okay. And in this Spring Service config, I'm going to create a public static method which will return object mapper type. Okay, and the method will be called object mapper. From here, we can return new object mapper. So since we have the Spring Service config and the method is static, so we can call this method object mapper directly. And what I'll do here is I'll do it Spring Service config, which we just created, and then call the method object mapper in it. So now the object mapper variable in this class, sample service IMPL, has been initialized. And let's say I have another method here, which is public, public and HTTP status of object mapper method. Okay, and I'm just going to do a try block here, which is object obj, and I'm going to use that object mapper variable which we created, and the method on this will be write value as bytes, and I'm using any text here, some text. Okay, and it says that we have to have an exception to the method signature, which could be like that. So what I'll do, I'll add a catch block, and that will be handling that same exception which it was suggesting us. Let's say E, and here I can return HTTP status, let's say bad request. Okay, and if it doesn't go to catch, this method will return HTTP status. Okay. So the happy path would be it goes into try, it executes this object mapper write value as bytes. Whatever value it returns will be assigned to obj. Okay. And then HTTPS OK will be returned by this method, object mapper method. In case something goes wrong and the control falls to catch block with this exception, then it will return HTTP bad request. So the idea would be that we want to cover the negative scenario in the test, and that we are going to look in next. Okay, so for that, we'll have to have another, let's say, package in the test folder or test directory, which is service, and I'm going to create a class here. I can guess the name, which will be sample service IMPL test, since we are going to write the test for sample service IMPL class. This will be our class which will contain the tests. Okay, and then I can write here Spring Boot test. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to auto wire the sample service IMPL class. That is the class for which we need to write the test. So private sample service IMPL, sample service IMPL, that's it. And now coming to the exact test. Okay, so the test would look like that: public void, and we are writing the test for this method, which is object mapper method. And so I go here, object mapper test. Okay, and here we can write object HTTP status. Let's say this is the one, and sample service and object mapper method is called. So from this call, we know that if I go into this, what it will do, it will convert this text into bytes assigned to obj. I don't think there will be any exception, so it will return HTTPS status. Okay, so that you can assert here in case of a positive test. But if you want to write a negative scenario test, in which case, if I call this object mapper method on sample service, this part here should throw an exception. And as soon as it throws the exception, it will go into catch block. And instead of HTTPS OK, which is happy path for this method, it will return HTTP status bad request. Okay, so this is the part which we need to cover. So coming back to sample service IMPL test. Okay, what I want to do is I want to check the negative scenario, right? Okay, I clicked wrong. So what can we do to verify that or to validate that scenario and to provide a better coverage of our method? Obviously, we need to mock the behavior of write value as bytes method, which is being called on object mapper uh, variable, right? Object. So how can we do it, right? Since object mapper is a private member, we cannot mock the behavior directly. Why? Because this object mapper does not have any visibility outside this class. And to mock something, you must have access outside the implementation class, obviously in the test class, right? So what could be the way? So if I go back to sample service IMPL, there are a couple of ways which could come, as a straightforward approach to you. One thing could be, can I convert this from private to public, right? But that would not make much sense because only for the test you are, converting this member from private to public. You know that you are not going to use in any of the implementation or the main code classes this public member, right? You are never going to use it. And ideally, you should have it private. So it doesn't make sense to create or to make it public just for the sake of test case, right? So we'll keep it private. Another way you could think is that you create a getter method for that member variable, which is suggested on, a lot of discussions. So if I say that public object mapper, okay, and object mapper, get object mapper, let's say, okay, and then I return the same uh, instance here, which we have created. So return it from here, okay. This is again, you are adding another method in the class, which is eating up your space and which is not required exactly from implementation perspective. This is again, you are doing only for the test because you want to mock the behavior of a private member. So what could be the better way, right? You don't want to touch this class because whatever change you are intending to do, that is only for the test. So another way, or maybe a better way or better approach, could be to use a Java Reflect APIs, which lets you change the behavior or mock the behavior of the private members. Okay, and how can we do it? Let's go to sample service MPL here, and let me say mock private object mapper, and I would say it object mapper mock. Okay, this I have declared. And in this method, I'm going to do certain things. Okay, so let's say now we'll be using the Java Reflect API and the related classes. So let's say I'm using field, which is java.lang.reflect, right? In that package. So I'll use this field and let's keep it simple, name it field. Then what I want to do it, right? So which member or which private member I want to mock, right? So first I have to define that, okay, in which class that private member resides, which is sample service, which we have declared here. Okay, I'm using this dot get class. So this is the way you use it. Okay, and instead of get field, we'll be using get declared field. Okay, and the name of the private member you need to give in string in quotes. Okay, so the name is object mapper, which we have given. Okay, so what it says is it can throw exception, right? So we can just add no such field exception here in the throws part of this test method. Okay, so now we got this into the field. Okay, next, what we need to do is we need to set it accessible. Okay, so field dot set accessible, which says that set the accessible flag for this reflected object to the indicated Boolean value, which is okay, obviously we'll be setting it to true. And the value of true indicates that the reflected object should suppress checks for Java language access controls when it is used. The value of false indicates that the reflected object should enforce checks of Java language access control when it is used. So we want to mock the private. So I'll be setting it to set accessible to true. This is the way which will be, the Java access methods will not be forced as we saw in the description, right? Java language access controls. And next, let's say field dot set. Okay. And now we are changing here, like, so I want to change that sample service class method, which is object mapper, and I want to use object mapper mock, which we declared at the top here. And okay, so after doing this, what we need to do is that we need to actually mock the behavior. So we will use the when, and within that I'll call object mapper mock dot write value as bytes, and it could be any value. So I'm just putting any here. Okay, any, and then I'm saying then throw, and I want to throw a JSON processing exception here, dot class. Okay, okay, again, I'm just throwing it here, JSON processing exception. Okay, and then next would be our HTTP status sample service object mapper method, which we want to test. Okay, so now we'll do here assert that HTTP status which we have got dot is equal to HTTP status dot pet request. And this is what we wanted to verify, right? This is what we wanted to validate. So basically what we are saying is whenever this write value as bytes will be called on that object mapper, okay, which we have already used with the Reflect API. Whenever this method will be called, it should throw a JSON processing exception. Okay, and we know that this is being used here. So if I go to object mapper method here, right value is bytes, right? Whenever this will be called with any value, that's what we have defined in the test, right? So it will throw a JSON processing exception. As soon as it throws JSON processing exception, right, what we have written is catch block. So the control will go into catch block, and this method will return HTTPS bad request. The same HTTP bad request response from object mapper method we have assigned to HTTP status here. And in the next line, we are going to verify, we are going to assert that the HTTP status, right, is equal to HTTP status bad request. So this is how you can mock the behavior of a private member of the class. Uh, it's very important that you have right amount of coverage of your code. Many times we skip certain scenarios, we skip certain part of the code which could be critical in the event of validating the code, especially in CI/CD pipelines, or if you are validating the code on your local machine by running all the test cases, any script as such. So it's very important that you have proper coverage. Along with the percentage of coverage which you see, on the tool, it is always important for the developers to know that, okay, this is the scenario which is very critical. This is the scenario which we should cover. These are the scenarios which resembles or which are quite close to the real-time flow or real-time scenarios when it will come to the real-time use cases of that application in production or otherwise. So it's very important to make your application robust by providing proper test coverage. And that should be, without interfering that main class code. So it was an example. We already have a blog post on this on bits2gigs.com. Hope you have seen there, or you might have come from there to YouTube, or vice versa. Also, it will be fun to know if you can let us know in the comments that what level of coverage you currently have in your application, what percentage of coverage you have, what are the problems you are facing. So we'll be quite happy to discuss that in the comment section. Uh, Please let us know what do you think. So this was all about mocking a private member. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe the channel. We'll be posting a series of these kind of videos, similar videos on the content which we have already published on bits2gigs.com and otherwise. Please watch this space and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. Happy learning.